Hello, everyone, and welcome to Navigating Law, Strategies, and Skills to Succeed in Firm Life, presented by the Texas Young Lawyers Association. This program is approved for 1 hour of CLE credit in Texas, and you'll need to self-report your attendance at the State Bar Texas website using the CLE number that will be provided in the chat towards the end of the presentation. Lastly, feel free to submit any questions during this through the Q&A chat function during the presentation. Now let me introduce our speakers today. We have Kaylan Dunn, who's a litigation partner in the Houston office of Hunton Andrews Kurth, where she has practiced for the last 12 years. Kaylan's practice focuses on commercial litigation in both state and federal courts, as well as bankruptcy courts for clients across sectors, including the energy, banking, and real estate fields. She's a graduate of TCU and South Texas College of Law. Kaylan is a former member of the board of the Texas Young Lawyers Association and currently sits on the board of the Houston Bar Association. Michelle Scheffler is a go-to trial lawyer for energy clients and high-stakes litigation, from bet the company's civil cases to catastrophic personal injury and death cases. When Michelle's not in the courtroom, she stays busy with her 3 kids who are in 6th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade. Michelle has been a partner at 2 large law firms in Houston, and she's currently a partner at Haynes Boone and was previously a partner at Hunton Andrews Kurth, where she started her career. Donald Delgado is a partner with West Webb, Albritton, and Gentry in College Station. Mr. Delgado represents businesses, corporations, and individuals in a wide variety of complex litigation matters, including business torts, construction litigation, oil and gas disputes, probate litigation, and catastrophic personal injury and wrongful death litigation. Mr. Delgado has a long history of service to the bar. He is currently the president of the Brazos County Bar Association, has served as vice president and director of the Texas Young Lawyers Association, nominating chair of the Texas Bar Foundation, and panel chair of the District 8A Grievance Committee. Outside of his bar service, he's a founding member and on the board of the First Wind Foundation, serves as a secretary and director of On-Ramp, and is on the board of Save Our Streets Ministries. And thank y'all for being here, and let's get started. Basically, just want to get started. If y'all can kind of quick introduction of yourself and what type of firms are y'all at? Size of firms, do they do all kinds of litigation, transactional work? Just quick introduction kind of what type of firms you're with.
Sure, I'll start. Kaylan Dunn, Hunton Andrews Kurth. Hunton Andrews Kurth has about 850 attorneys internationally. We're a full service firm that does anything and everything, really. So we are kind of quintessential big law.
Hi, everybody. Michelle Scheffler. I'm at Haynes Boone. We are also a full service international law firm. We have, I think, somewhere around 650 lawyers at this point. I'm in the Houston office, which our practices in Houston focus primarily on energy. But again, that's across the spectrum, both on the litigation side and the transactional side. But similar to Hunton Andrews Kurth, we kind of do everything and anything.
Yeah, and so I'm at West Webb. We are based out of College Station. We have various offices throughout the state, but we would be what was considered a mid-sized firm, but it's a full-service firm. We do everything transactional all the way up to litigation, and so our position in College Station, at least in our main office, allows us to be able to handle matters throughout the state. We're kind of in that sweet spot of the Texas Triangle, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. And so it's fun to be able to do work around the state.
Okay. One thing I want to ask y'all is kind of when you're getting started, say as a new associate, especially in a firm that handles a lot of different areas of practice, is it better to focus? Do you find yourself as a new associate benefiting from focusing on one, kind of narrowing down your areas of practice, or doing more general to begin with?
I'll take this one first, Tyler. At least for me, when I was a young associate, I really did anything and everything that came across my desk. And I think that's a really great way to start out, because I think there are very few people who really know what they want to do. Even those folks that are like, I want to be a tax lawyer, or I want to do, whatever it is. Sometimes you don't even really know what that means, right? And so giving yourself the opportunity to have lots of different experiences, not only kind of subject matter wise, but also working with different people. At least for me, that was really important. And that was a great way to kind of figure out what I like to do, what I wanted to focus on, and also who I wanted to work with. And that allowed me to, to tailor my practice into the oil and gas space and kind of as I progressed.
I think Michelle hit it just squarely on the head with that. That's it. I mean, granted, we came up together, so we had pretty similar experiences in that regard as young associates, but I do think that trying a lot of things really helps you understand what you truly want to do and who you want to do it with. So I think she got that absolutely right.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'll piggyback off of that. And also, I think the important part is not just what Michelle said across the various topics, and but also with the different people. And my kind of mantra that I'll give our young associates is try not to ever turn down a project, even if it's something that you're just, you're not wanting to do. And if it's on a completely different subject matter, you got to try it first to see whether you ever really truly like it or not. And so just being open when you're first starting off to doing whatever type of work it is honestly, law schools don't really teach us to be lawyers, right? You learn to be good lawyers during your first few years of practice. And so how do you know whether you're good at something or that you really like something if you're not, trying to get your hands in as many pots as possible to see what it is that you like and you're good at and you're passionate about?
Kind of to add on to that question a little bit, at what point, so everybody's kind of on the same page of, we are pretty broad as new associates coming into firms, trying as much stuff as you can. At what point in your career do you kind of see yourself narrowing that down to specific areas of practice that you found? Is that around your third year, fifth year, wherever?
I'll start again. I think that's probably going to be particular for the person. For me, it wasn't probably until maybe my fifth or sixth year that I started specializing more in the energy space. I think that, and it's different for all of us. And Donald and Kaylan may have different answers to this. For me, specialization really helps with marketing and with business development. And I not only did I just really happen to like oil and gas and want to do that the majority of the time, but I think it helps in marketing yourself. So for me, it was that kind of, mid-level associate range where I started veering more towards a specialty.
I would add that when you get to that mid-level associate range, you're starting to take a lot more responsibility for matters. And when they become your own, you start having even a bigger passion about them than you did. And so I think that also helps guide you into, do I really like this? Is this what I want to do when you're taking that ownership of things? And so I do find that people tend to start focusing kind of at that mid-level point.
Yeah, and that's not to say that wherever you're at in that third to fifth year and you specialize in something that you're going to be pigeonholed, get stuck in it, because circumstances change, things change, opportunities arise. And so you also need to be somewhat flexible as things, those opportunities show up, because you don't want to just, sit in your silo and then, great opportunities, great potential clients come aboard, but it's not your specialty, so you're not going to, delve into it. So yeah, you probably start specializing a little bit more in that time, 3 to 5 years. But still keep an open mind. And I mean, your skill set, especially, and maybe this is just from a litigation perspective, it's transferable across different sectors. This is what I tell clients and associates is that we hire experts for a reason, right? So I don't necessarily have to have the special particular knowledge for every single thing. But I thought I'd add that it's still a fluid thing. And
Kaylan, you kind of mentioned a little bit of after about 3 or so years, you kind of start getting your own clients, and those are kind of your cases that you start kind of taking on. At what point in your career do you find yourself, or expectations of when you should start having your own clients and bringing those in?
Well, so I would say that at least in my experience in Big Law, it's not your own clients, it's that you're getting the responsibility. And it could be different if you're in a smaller firm, but I don't think that anybody should feel pressure to have their own clients as a third-year associate, especially unless you're in a solo or a small firm setting. I would say that, you should be doing all of the work to be able to develop clients throughout your time as an associate. But it really, for me, I mean, I would have, hits here and there as an associate. It was really when I became partner and earned that title that the work started coming in. And I think that just naturally makes sense, because it's hard to get a big company to hire an associate. And so you want to be doing the legwork to develop those relationships that you have a strong belief will turn into those clients as you go forward. But at least personally, I didn't really start developing my own clients until, later in my associate years and early in my partnership years.
Yeah, and I think from a mid-sized firm, I think that's absolutely right, and where we're at as well. And you're not getting the clients in the third year. And I don't want people who are in that position right now hyperventilating, thinking, "Oh no, I don't have," because that's not. You probably get more client face-to-face time, as your responsibilities grow, but you're still not bringing in the clients yet at that time. And that just, it's like Kaylan says, it comes with time, it comes with experience, comes with just the natural progression of you're going to know people, in higher places who have the capacity to hire you as you guys grow up together, and so what I tell associates when they're starting that's young is that you treat your partners as your client, because that's where your work is going to be coming from. You're going to be dependent on the senior associates and the partners to be giving you work. And so one way to try to hone your client skills is to treat them as your clients, and meaning you're attentive, you're responsive to communications, you're meeting your deadlines, and then that's good practice and good behavior that you want to mold throughout once you do get your clients.
So you kind of talked about treating your partners as your clients, and how do you recommend going about that? Obviously, this differs from firm to firm, but do you try to kind of work more closely with one or two partners, or do you try to work with as many partners as you can and kind of market yourself to everyone you have available to you?
I mean, I think especially your first 2 years, you get the work where it comes. You want to be the one that is the people are clamoring to work with you because you're trustworthy, that you do good work, that you're communicative, and so the more work that you can do for the more partners, the more your reputation will grow, and and your responsibilities will grow as well. And everybody's got their own style. So I think it's important as a young associate to recognize the different styles that there are, and that there's not really one way to do it. There's various ways, and so you can learn a lot from the various partners you work with.
I couldn't agree with Donald more. And I think that goes hand in hand with the specialization piece of it, right? It's, get as much experience, not only to subject matter, but to different lawyers as you can. It also builds your reputation within your firm to be saying yes to every opportunity that comes up. And so you're building yourself in two ways. And the way I like to think about it, to Donald's point about practice your client service skills first with the partners you work for, is my job with clients is to make their lives easier and to make them look good. Your job as an associate is to make my life easier and make me look good, right? It's that as simple as it is. And whether that's sending a simple, concise email that I can read in less than 20 minutes. Dear God, don't send long emails. If you take away one thing from this call today, do not send long emails to people. But that's what it boils down to, is making somebody's job easier and making them look good. If you can do that and practice on your partners, the client service piece will come absolutely naturally and easily to you.
I was going to say, Michelle and Donald both used a word that I think is so important, and that's reputation. You may tend to work with one or two partners more just because of natural workflows, but you want everybody, not just if you're a transactional attorney in your corporate group to know you, but the litigators to also know that you are the go-to associate. You want that reputation to precede you, even with people you haven't worked with. So I think reputation is the most valuable thing you can have inside a law firm.
Yeah, and Michelle nailed it too with, what is going to make my life easier? What is going to make, X's life easier? And a lot of times what I know I didn't recognize when I was, a young associate, but, you may feel like you're the busiest one at the, at the firm, but trust me, you're not, because, and that goes, especially for, the partners, because when you're a young associate, I mean, everybody's, trajectory is different, but typically you're younger, maybe single, maybe don't have kids, right? But your partner's life, if he or she goes home for 5 or 6, their second job is starting, right? They've got other responsibilities, whether that's at home or whether that's networking, being involved in the community or whatnot. And so I know there may be a tendency to think, well, I'm at the office longer than they are, and it's not fair or whatever. But you got to understand that there's a lot of things that you may not be seeing in their lives that is going on. And so your job is to make them make their life easier, make them look good. And I remember there was one associate no longer here, but I'd ask them, can you just draft me an email that I can send to the client? And there was a little bit pushback. Well, if I'm going to draft it, why can't I just send it? Right. And wanting to take credit, which I appreciated, but it was the not seeing the big picture sort of deal. And sometimes, I mean, if you haven't lived it, you don't know. And so, anyways, yeah, what can I do to make X's life easier? And that goes for your secretary, that goes for your paralegal too.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's hard sometimes when you're first starting out to see that bigger picture, like some things that I like to try to work on with the associates I work with is seeing 2 steps ahead, right? If you give me a brief, or if you're, turning a draft of something, you're for a transactional lawyer and you send it to me at 6 o'clock, that means I'm staying up to read it that night, right? And then, so you have to think of, okay, my partner needs time to review this, to revise it, maybe for us to go back and forth. Then the client needs time to do that, right? And the client has other things going on that we don't know about. So dropping things on them at 4 p.m. on a Friday is not a nice thing to do. That does not make their life easier. That makes them annoyed at you. And so trying to think through those things, and they're simple, but that's really the key to client service. And picking up on something else Donald said, and I'm sorry, Tyler, I feel like we're totally taking over and we're not even.
No, you're fine.
Is that, shoot, I forgot what I was going to say now. That's okay. I'll remember in a second, I'm sure.
So we kind of talking about working with partners in the firm. Can y'all kind of talk about how important it is to work with the rest of the staff at the firm, being secretaries, legal assistants, paralegals, whoever it may be, and how that's kind of impacted your life and the career, ups and downs with it?
I think it's so important to have good staff, but also have a good relationship with your staff, especially as a young attorney. Your paralegals and your secretaries / PAs have been doing this a lot longer than you have, and they know a lot more than you do. I mean, I remember with my very first secretary, most amazing woman, she looked at me on the first thing I was going to file and she said, "Do you have a certificate of conference?" I said, I don't know what that is. Never heard of it, didn't know you had to do it. I was like, why would I? I was like, they're not going to like what I'm filing, so they're not going to agree to it, but those little things, they know so much more. And as the same wonderful woman also said to me, she's like, it is my job to get these things, looking good and ready to file and all of that. Your clients aren't paying for you to be formatting in Microsoft, for hours when you can't figure out how to make the columns do it. She's like, just send it to me. That is my job. Utilize them. I mean, I know a lot of us are very tech savvy now, much more so than some of our predecessors, but they sit at their desk for a reason, and that is to help make our lives easier. And so take advantage of that. Treat them with respect, because they can make your lives so much better. And if they don't like you, they can probably make your life a lot worse.
I think it all goes back to, I remembered what I was going to say off of one of Donald's comments earlier. The whole idea of you making your partner's life easier, the legal practice is completely based on relationships, to Kaylan's point. And it's a mutual thing, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. The more I get from the associates I work with, the more I want to give back to them, right? The more I'm going out of my way to mentor, the more I'm going out of my way to point things out, to help them. And so it's a symbiotic thing. And I think the same thing is true with staff, right? You want everybody in the boat to be rowing the same direction, and we're all working towards the same goal, which is the best client service possible. And, having an awesome relationship with your secretary who's going to have your back and catch things for you, that's key. And it just makes life better. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you be a nice, kind person and operate that way at work? It's just,
And I'll add that it goes back to reputation, because over the years, I have heard of people that were disrespectful to a secretary. And I mean, you will not get a partner madder at you than treating somebody poorly like that. And that damages your reputation. The idea of ego or somebody thinking that they're better than somebody who's not a lawyer, it does not play in the vast majority of places. Don't do it. But it will damage your reputation, and your reputation is really all you have at the end of the day. So
People will know. I mean, the word will get around for sure. And I wanted to add that, at least to Kaylan's point about helping with things. I mean, I learned so much from my paralegals the first couple of years. I mean, they probably could practice law better than I could even now, but especially then. And so, it's about ego, not having ego, learning or realizing that you could learn a lot about being a lawyer, not from other lawyers in your firm. And I think, boy, they'll bail you out when you need it too. And they'll go to bat, and you shouldn't be nice to them just because they may be able to help you, right? I mean, that's not, but who do you think they're going to be more likely to want to help over the weekend or late at night? Somebody who's rude to them? Well, probably not. So.
And would you say, like, if you treat them not the nicest, that they've probably been at the firm a whole lot longer than a new attorney? Do they have the partner's ears to talk about how the associates are treating them? And does that go into effect with how partners perceive them from what they can't see with their own eyes?
absolutely.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you'll see senior partners who've worked. I work with a senior partner who has had the same secretary for 30 years. You can bet that she's reporting back if some brand new associate is rude to her. 100%. I mean, I still kiss her behind, and I've known her for 17 years. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm just, I think it boils down to just, treat everybody with kindness and respect.
Yeah. So let's talk about for just briefly, the subject that attorneys hate, which is billing and keeping time. What have you seen as what advice can you give new associates about keeping your time and how you do your billing as they come in, maybe some expectations of what's expected as a first-year associate and how that progresses in their career.
Enter your time every day. At least write it down so that you can enter it every day. But this idea of trying to go back at the end of the month and go through your emails and try to estimate what the heck you're doing, you are going to lose time doing that. Just take the 5 minutes it takes to put the time in every day instead of spending 30 minutes at the end of the month to get through that one day's worth of time. Especially for litigators, be very descriptive in what you're doing. Some transactional lawyers can get away with work on deal. That's never going to fly for a litigator. As far as a bill goes, you can't say work on case. Clients don't pay for that. They pay for detail. Understand client expectations when it comes to billing. Do they require individual task-based billing, or do they allow for block billing? That helps your partner, makes their life easier if you're following any particular client rules on the front end so that they're not having to edit your time to break it up. And then I would say, don't ever discount your own time. If you've spent too much time on a matter, that is up for the partner to make a decision. If you're like, I spent 10 hours on Westlaw and I never found the answer, I can't in good faith say it was more than 6 hours. Write the 10 hours down. You can talk to your partner about it, but never second guess your time. Let them make that decision.
This is I need to listen to this advice, because in 17 years, I don't think I've ever not entered all my time on the last day of the month, which is awful, y'all. It's absolutely terrible. And every single month, I have a total anxiety attack. It takes the entire day. So I burn an entire day doing my time. And it's just not worth it. Like Kaylan said, I'm likely losing time every month. I'm like, I'm going to do better this month. I don't know why I haven't been able to get it together, but what I've noticed is actually everybody that's younger than me is a lot better at it than I am. And I don't know if that's because we have better timekeeping kind of, software and that sort of stuff now that folks have just gotten used to. I do write it down, Kaylan. Don't totally freak out. But I think people are getting better about it. One thing that recently came up in our group that I think is good for younger folks to think about is if you're entering your time every day, most partners get a report, or at least we get reports on what time is getting entered. And it's an easy way for us to know, okay, Kaylan's busy and Donald needs more work. But if Donald isn't entering his time, then I don't know whether Donald's busy or not busy, right? So it's an easy way for us to keep better tabs on workflow and making sure that, everything's balanced. Don't do what I do.
Well, and that's all true. And I think billing is especially billing entries, it's an art form, like Kaylan said, because there's right ways to describe something that you're doing, and then there's some that probably aren't as good. And so when you're starting off, you're not going to know how to word certain things, but to the extent that you can, pay attention to your partners and to your senior associates to see how is it that they're writing these various tasks, because to Kaylan's point, a client is not going to want to pay me for having talked to Tyler about strategy or whatever, about an email that I got. They're going to say no. I'm not going to pay you for y'all talking amongst yourselves about stuff. Typically, in my experience, that's something that is a pet peeve for clients. And so you have to find ways to describe, because Kaylan's absolutely right. You write down every single thing that keep time for every single thing that you're doing. You just have to figure out the proper way or the right way. And your firm may have, it's different policies for how to write it, but it is. You have to figure what those out and write it in that way. And it is an art form. And at the end of the month, you have an opportunity to edit it. And if you're able to look back at your time, and it's a time then is your final time to revise, to make them as good as possible. And speaking from experience and being cross-examined on your attorney's fees bills by another, attorney, and you're up there having to justify because they're looking for every little bad entry or whatever so that, to eviscerate you on the stand. That's not a good feeling, and so you gotta, after that experience, I've now realized that you really, really have to put in the time on the front end to make sure, especially if you're in a litigation situation and you're asking for your attorney's fees. Keep that in mind when you're keeping your time.
And I think for it's most applicable to first year associates out there, but ask the question, if I come to you and I say, we have a new matter for Jones Co. and we're going to do this, just ask the question, is there anything I need to, is there anything special about the billing? Ask on the front end, and, the client might not have that at top of mind. The partner might not have even thought through that, but it's something, ask that question and then you have your answer and you can say, okay, I literally have to write every .1 that I did because that's how they want it, as opposed to me telling you a story about everything I did all day.
Here's another point on this that I think that I just thought about, that I think it reflects the kind of, partner as your client situation for associates. For instance, I have an associate who is the most brilliant timekeeper. This guy writes the best. I mean, there's so much in there. It's so descriptive. It's awesome. When I'm doing the bills, I never cut that guy's time, ever. I'm like, oh yeah, looks great. And I move on to the next entry, right? When I'm doing my editing. When there's this vague, weird, research statute of limitations, 6.2 hours. I'm going, what the heck were you doing on Westlaw for 6.2 hours? You know what I'm saying? That makes me potentially cut that time. Not that you should be overly worried about that, but at some point, you have to think about that too. But if you had just bulked that up, looked at statute of limitations, defenses in this jurisdiction, as well as other affirmative defenses, blah, 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 blah. If you had beefed up what you've done, then I'd go, okay, cool. And that's it. So that step goes from the partner, but then to Donald's point, the client is also doing that. So just write down what you actually did and none of this is an issue. All good.
Right. Well, and there's a caveat to everything, right? Though, right? Like, so if you're spending the 10 hours, like Kaylan said, researching Westlaw, which you should be putting down your first year, right? Then your second, your third, your fourth year, you got to realize that now you got the experience. So you probably shouldn't be spending 10 hours on, this task now, because, you will be, that sort of stuff will be taken into consideration as you're being evaluated. Are they being more efficient with their time? Are they, learning as they go? You get a little bit of grace, I think your first year, and then you're in your second year. But as you're growing in your practice, there's some things that probably shouldn't be taking you as much, as long as it did at the beginning.
But don't worry, we'll tell you if you're doing that.
One thing I kind of like to add on to that, I can't remember who mentioned it, but versus kind of individual time entries versus more block billing. Is that something you'd want an associate to go to you with before they start doing their time? To determine, like, certain clients are fine with block billing, certain clients are not. If you're going to court asking for attorney's fees, individual billing might be better. Can you all just kind of elaborate on what the difference is there, when you use it, when you don't?
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that was Kaylan's recommendation. When you're talking to a partner about a new matter, I think that's a great thing to ask about. Does this client have any specifics regarding billing? Do you, Kaylan, have any specifics about the way that you like time entered? Right? Because I think that's also kind of a partner to partner thing, right? Kaylan may hate semicolons and I don't care, whatever. There might be differences there, nuances there between the partners that you work for that you may need to know. And it's really client specific, right? A lot of our bigger clients tend to have pretty specific guidelines regarding how they want their billing done. Many of those clients don't allow block billing. They want it broken out. But it's in my experience, it's completely client specific.
I agree, but Michelle touched on partner preferences. Some people like it written in the past tense, some like it written in the present tense. That's an easy thing to ask. And it makes partners' lives easier if they're editing the bill, that you're not the only person whose time entries they have to change because you wrote everything in the past tense. And, we always write review and analyze, or ask how they like that, right? Some people don't want draft. Some people want prepare. And it sounds silly when you say it like that, but the consistency in billing looks good too. So those are easy things to ask. I mean, it's separate and apart from billing. I had one partner coming up that wanted everything in Book Antigua, and another that only liked things in Century School Book. To this day, when I work with them and they're my partners now, I'm like, okay, control all, Book on Antigua, here you go, Georgia. Like that's, but those are simple things that you can do that are going to stand out, even if it's subconsciously, to the partners you're working with. They make their lives easier. So you kind of hear this common mantra from us, but it's simple things like that, trying to find out preferences. There's a former partner at our firm that when he was at the University of Texas, he wrote the Green Book. And apparently when it was written way back when, it used an N dash instead of an M dash. And he wanted to see drafts like that. He would allow his secretary to change everything to M dashes before it went out. He was a quirky man. And he only liked straight quotation marks instead of curly ones. But I was a summer associate, and my associate sponsor was like, here are his weird quirks, just do them. But find out those things. Do you have a preference in font? I mean, things like that. I know it sounds silly, but it does matter, and it shows that you're interested, you're engaged, and it does stand out to people, that little attention to detail.
Kaylan, and you mentioning that made me think of something that I think is valuable to keep in mind, is that when you're being asked as an associate, give me a draft of something. Yes, it's a draft, but it's a draft meant for us to either discuss, revise, edit, but don't give it to your partner and to say, well, this is like a rough draft, and just to get it in within the deadline or whatever. Like, you expect that it's your final product. So don't bring it into it. Don't come into it thinking, well, it's just a draft, so I'll clean up the citations, later, or I'll do the punctuation stuff later, or the grammar I'll check for. No, you should have it as close to ready as possible, because again, that's treating your partner, your senior associate, as your client.
Now, one thing that's changed kind of in the last couple of years, we'll switch gears here, with COVID and everything, is people working out of the office and not as much face-to-face stuff. Can you kind of talk about the benefits of face-to-face meetings, being in the office, talking to people versus a phone call and email? How important is that to be face-to-face, or not important if everything's working virtually now?
Well, I'll start off this one. So I think it depends on a whole lot of factors, right? I think it's a office specific thing, a culture, a work culture thing, and a generational thing. And I think you have to be aware of all three of those things when you're an associate, saying, you know what, I know that my firm has a you can work remote work policy, that you can do it, but just because you're allowed to do it, should you do it? Could it be viewed wrong? And so you just got to take all of those things into consideration. If you're working on a particular matter with a partner that is 2 generations ahead of you, and they like that in-person thing, then you got to be able to, yes, be flexible, but keep in mind those variables and how they may be looked at?
I think you can get a lot of amazing experience being face to face or, just next door to somebody. You get pulled in on a phone call that you otherwise wouldn't if you weren't present. I think that COVID, helped establish the fact in kind of everybody's minds that we are all adults and we are capable of doing our jobs and making the decisions. And if there's a day that, I have a client lunch on the other side of town, I'm not going to drive downtown for it. If it's, and I can make that decision reasonably based on the needs of my team. So I think the flexibility is great, but I think that you may not realize it, but you're missing opportunities when you aren't present. Because if I need somebody to jump on something and I walk to your office and you're not there, I'm going to go to the next associate and they might get the cool case that you otherwise would have been top of mind for. But that said, I don't think you have to be in your chair every single day. I think it's just being thoughtful to, who am I working with? What are we doing? What are the demands right now? It might be that your office has an expectation that you're there 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily out Monday and Friday. And it could be that you're working on a case that demands that you're there 5-6 days a week for 4 weeks. And then everybody says it was a good run. Let's, we're going to work from home a little bit more. But there really is a benefit to being present, and you do get different and more experience than I think you would otherwise get from a remote situation.
I couldn't agree more. And for me and my team, we're all grown-ups. I was actually talking to somebody about this recently, and what this reminds me of in a lot of ways is, when I was a brand new associate, when Kaylan was a brand new associate, you figured out whether your partner was a morning person or an evening person. And you kind of fit your schedule to that, right? If you worked for somebody that got there every single day at 8, rolling in at 10 maybe wasn't that cool, right? It's about that perception and judgment in how do I fit into this team and how can I best support this team. And so, our folks, like, I don't know, if you need to go deal with your refrigerator on Tuesday, I don't care, right? But like, if we have a brief going out, it's really helpful if you're here so that we can, flip those drafts and I can run down the hall and ask you a question. So it's about figuring out, to Kaylan's point, when you need to be there and when it's okay not to be. But, we're all here. We all went to law school. We're all adults. We all have good judgment. So just, utilize that judgment instead of seeing it as okay, well, I only have to be here 3 days a week, so that's all I'm going to do. I think it just be more nuanced about it.
And kind of shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about kind of marketing and networking, basically marketing yourself. How important is that? And what ways have you found are beneficial to use that you've used or seen other people use that have worked to market themselves as an attorney?
I have a good story about this. So I always felt really uncomfortable talking about myself. And I think a lot of people have that same kind of bent. And I remember when I was at Andrews Kurth, we had a Friday morning litigation meeting. And there was a particular woman at the Friday morning litigation meeting that I noticed a couple of years before she became a partner. She had really thoughtful comments at these meetings, and she would talk about what she was working on in a way that made it sound really important. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's really smart. I need to be doing that too. Instead of, when we're going around the room in this silly meeting and I go, oh, I'm just working on some discovery. Instead of doing that, I need to think before I walk into this meeting, and I need to describe what I'm doing with value, right? And so the other people in this room know what value I'm adding to the firm, to the team, to the group, whatever. I think it's key. And I think you just have to think about it in a different way. For those of us who may be a little bit uncomfortable talking about ourselves, it's really just like time entries. It's expressing the value you're adding to the team. And frankly, if you don't do it for yourself, it may not happen. You know, I also try to model that within my team. I try to brag about the folks I work with at every chance I can. Because maybe there's somebody who's not great about speaking up about themselves. But I think in this day and age, with as many lawyers as there are in the markets, and all of that, you have to be considerate about branding. You have to be considerate about marketing, but you have to do so in a way that feels authentic to yourself, and it doesn't feel, you know, braggadocious.
Similar to what Michelle said, there was a business development coach that I heard speak, and she said, always have an answer to what's going on, or, you know, how are you? Because people, you know, what's going on? Oh, you know, same old same, staying busy. Everybody says that. It doesn't differentiate you. So if you say, yeah, I just settled this crazy case involving, you know, ducks and pastors, you know, either it's going to lead to additional conversation, or, you know, people are going to say, I don't necessarily care about the ducks or the pastors, but she had something to say and it sticks out in your mind. So kind of always have an answer to that. And it, you know, you're always marketing yourself, whether you know it or not. If you're at the bar on a Saturday night acting like a buffoon in front of a bunch of, you know, other lawyers, that's bad marketing. Now, you're not thinking about it in terms of marketing, but anytime you're out and about, you know, talking about yourself or what you do, it's marketing. And I think people think marketing is the billboard on the side of the freeway, or, you know, constantly posting on Facebook about your wins. And it's not necessarily that, but it's presenting yourself at all times so that you're viewed as the right person to go to when that person has a need you can fulfill.
Yeah, and I think what goes hand to hand with that is your networking. So you know, your best advertisers, your best cheerleaders are going to be the ones who know you. And so that means you're going to have to get involved. Maybe not when you first, you know, you're first starting to get your foot in, you know, your head wrapped around how to be a lawyer. But eventually, you know, join the things that you are passionate about, that you like. Don't do things just because you have to do things. You know, do things that you like, that you have a passion for, that you want to learn more about. And then your network will slowly start growing from there. And like Kaylan said, you know, sometimes you could be going to these things and they may not even know you're a lawyer, right? Because you just don't ever talk about yourself, not in a bragging way, but like Kaylan said, you can find ways to let people know that you, one, are a lawyer, two, that you're a good lawyer, and three, the type of law that you do, so that, you know, it comes top of mind whenever they're looking for that sort of deal, that sort of lawyer. And so I think those are ways to market yourself in the not traditional taking a billboard out, you know, for yourself, you know, ways to do it. And there's really no wrong or right way. You just got to feel yourself and feel authentic and do what, be who you are, and don't try to be anybody else.
I couldn't agree with that last point that Donald made more. When I was in law school, I learned how to play golf because I thought that was like an essential part of the practice of law. And then I realized a couple of years in that I really didn't care anything about golf. And I think, you know, the business is built on relationships. It's built on confidence and trust. And your confidence, people's confidence and trust in you is more if you're being authentic and you're being yourself, and they can spot when you don't like golf, or when you don't give a, you know what about the football game you're at, or whatever it is. And I've done just fine being who I am. And there are ways to connect with people outside of golf, or whatever box, you know, you put in. Do the things you like, and you're going to do the best job at that, right? Like if you take a position on a board, and you really just don't, and say it's, you know, I don't know, the Arbor Society or something, and you're just not into trees. That's just not your jam. That's going to come through in your performance on that board. And whether the other people on that board are people that can directly give you work or not, they're going to read, oh, well, Michelle kind of, you know, only gave half effort on that. But if you're giving your full effort, that's what's going to come across. And it may not lead to immediately getting hired. But, 4 years down the road, when somebody's talking about Kaylan, oh yeah, I know Kaylan. She was on the Arbor board with me, and man, she just really was an amazing treasurer. She gave her all to the organization, whatever it is, right? So do things I'm 100% in on Donald's comment to do things you like in the community, in your neighborhood, whatever it is, and that will help you build that brand. That will help you market yourself in a truly authentic way.
And I want to just add something, and Tyler's probably going to kill us for getting off track on some of this, but I want to add, Michelle said maybe 4 years later, and you have to remember that all of this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and the work you're doing now by, being the good member of the Arbor board and making those relationships now, it takes that time. And it may, if you're in for instant gratification, this is not the profession for you. It just really typically doesn't happen. You're like, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm an energy litigator. Let me have your entire book of business. It happens all the time for Michelle, but she's an anomaly. No, but it really is. It's a long game. And so remember that, don't get frustrated in the process, but know that all of these incremental steps that you are taking will eventually get you there.
So I missed a couple things with some technical difficulties I had. My computer shut off in the middle of that.
Oh, good. Then you can't be mad at us. You don't know what we said. No.
Want to talk briefly about networking, benefits to it, and what ways y'all have found that work best for networking.
Well, we kind of been talking about this a little bit, Tyler, but I'll give another anecdotal story. And when I was a young lawyer, I would go to all these kind of networking events, and I just did not like them. I'm a naturally outgoing person, but it just felt kind of weird and fake, and it frankly was not fun at all. And at some point, I just stopped going to those. But I do tons of other stuff, right? Been my daughter's Girl Scout leader, and I'm on the PTA board, and I've been on the HOA and all this other stuff that I actually enjoy doing and I actually like. And that has led to meaningful relationships, meaningful network building, clients, all of those things, way more than shaking hands and gathering business cards and drinking a cocktail at a traditional networking reception did for me. Now, but it's not a one size fits all thing. That might be, you might love that. You might make a super fun game out of business card collection, and that's where you want to spend your time. That's awesome. But I think networking can mean lots of different things. It's really just about expanding your hub of relationships.
I think Michelle said it perfectly. Has been my experience too. So yeah, I will go to the networking events if I absolutely have to, but I don't find them to be fun either.
Have you found more success? And this is kind of what I think we're talking about, is getting yourself involved in more stuff that you enjoy yourself, and that'll kind of naturally bring in that networking portion with it. Okay.
Yes, for sure. And that's, for me at least, and I don't know about you guys, that's really changed at different points in my life, right? Like when, I was a younger lawyer, and we bought our first house, that, I was really involved in the HOA board and the, home tour committee and all this kind of stuff. As I've, gotten older and had kids, and my kids it's been, Girl Scouts or PTA or sports or whatever my kids are into. And so I think that ebbs as your life ebbs, as your, career changes, those networking opportunities change for you too, or at least they have for me.
I agree.
What have you found as kind of the best, or have you found a best way for you yourself to personally bring clients in, that you've seen a good benefit of bringing clients in one way, or is it just kind of all over the place?
Well, to me, I'll just tie it back to what we've just been talking about 5 minutes. It's being involved in doing the things that you like. That's the number one for me. That's been is, and like Kaylan said, it's not an immediate sometimes, but it's a few years down the road. And it may not be somebody who you served with on that, Arbor board with, but it's their neighbor, or it's, or somebody they work with, or whatever. And so I think that's the best way, is just getting involved in things that you enjoy.
And one thing I would that we haven't touched on much, but I think is really important is internal firm marketing and cross practice collaboration. So I have gotten a ton of work from my other partners because I am their go-to. If their real estate client has a dispute, I know that that person is going to call me. And so as you're coming up with the same people in your associate class that might not necessarily be in your section, develop those relationships, maintain them. And as you guys rise in your careers, you know, you're going to be their go-to, just like they're going to be your go-to, and you're generating business that way. So it doesn't all have to be external to the firm in the form of new clients. It's further developing the relationships that already exist so that they're not just a transactional real estate client, but they're a litigation client, or they're also an employment client, or however you can expand that. And be thinking about it too with your own client contacts of how can I fulfill additional needs that they have through my colleagues. You know, you hear them say, we just had a sexual harassment allegation. You should really talk to my partner, Scott. You know, he deals with this all the time. Now they might say we have somebody lined up, but then at least you're showing the capabilities of your firm, and that you are looking out for them and their potential needs. And that also helps you grow your book of business too.
Okay, well, we're coming up on an hour. Is there anything anybody wants to add before we kind of wrap this up?
Thank you, Tyler, for having us, and for all the
Absolutely.
thoughtful questions that you put together. I know this has been really fun. I was also on the TYLA board once upon a time, and it's fun to be still involved in TYLA in ways like this. So it's awesome. Thank you.
I agree. Thanks, Tyler. I will say, just when in doubt, ask questions. Your more senior associates, your partners are all there for you to help you. And they'd rather you do the work right on the front end than have to correct it on the back end because you misunderstood the assignment or you're making assumptions about what's wanted. So have that open dialogue, ask those questions. You know, don't think that you're asking dumb questions or that you're bothering somebody. It's better for the team if you are asking the right questions. You're going to learn a lot more and you're going to be a better associate in the long run.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. And I want to add that, you know, Michelle talked about TYLA and being involved with that organization. And so that's one thing too that you can look into is getting involved with your, you know, young lawyer affiliate, because sometimes it's good to get out of your office, your firm, and learn things that other firms may be doing. And you can learn of various ways that maybe they handle, you know, that keeping their time or whatever. But you could get sort of isolated within your own firm because, you know, you don't need to go network with other young lawyers because you've got young lawyers within your firm, within your office. But I think it's a good idea to try to seek, you know, friends and colleagues from other firms to try to get an idea of what their culture is like, what they do, and you may be able to bring something back to your office that you learned from them.
Well, thank you all for being here and for doing this presentation. And I can't add in the chat right now based on how I'm on Zoom right now, but I want to give out the number to everybody so you can self-report your hours.
I can put it in the chat for you, Tyler.
Okay. The number is 174-175-941. So it's 174-175-941.
And I lied. I can only publish it to hosts and panelists, so never mind.
Oh. Let's see. Well, that's all I have then. And let me tell you the number one more time, just in case anybody still needs it. It's 174-175-941. All right. Thank y'all, everybody, for coming.